You ever see a broke man with no direction get the woman of his dreams? No, because a man who doesn't build himself first is a man who settles for distractions, settles for mediocrity, settles for a life where he's always chasing but never becoming. See, the world wants you to think you need a girlfriend to be complete. They say you should have someone by your side, that being alone is some kind of failure. But let me tell you something, being lost in a relationship is the real failure. How many men do you know who drop their dreams the moment they get a woman? How many waste time, money, and energy on someone who doesn't even respect them because they never respected themselves first? Being single is not a weakness. It's an opportunity to build yourself without distractions. People make it seem like being single is some kind of failure, like you're missing out, like something is wrong with you if you don't have a girlfriend. But let me ask you, what's worse? A man who's alone but focused, disciplined, and building his future, or a man who's in a relationship that drains him, distracts him, and pulls him away from his purpose? The truth is, most men don't know how to be alone. They think they need someone to complete them. They jump into relationships not because they're ready, but because they're afraid of solitude. And that fear makes them weak. It makes them desperate. It makes them settle for less than they deserve. A strong man sees his time alone as an opportunity. No obligations, no distractions, no unnecessary drama. Just time to focus on himself, to sharpen his mind, strengthen his body, and create the life he wants. Because when you strip away the noise, what's left? The raw version of you. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, no woman is going to fix that for you. Most men spend their 20 cents chasing relationships instead of chasing greatness. They invest their energy into someone else instead of investing in themselves. Then one day they wake up, look around, and realize they've built nothing for themselves. They spent years giving instead of growing, and when the relationship ends, they have nothing. No purpose, no vision, no foundation. A woman should add to your life, not be. If you're not where you want to be, if you haven't built the man you need to be, then what are you even bringing to the table? A real man doesn't chase validation. He doesn't need a girlfriend just to prove something to society. He walks his own path, and when the time is right, the right woman will recognize his value. But that only happens when you take the time to build yourself first. So don't waste this season of your life feeling incomplete. Use it, develop discipline, master your craft. Learn to enjoy your own company. Because the man who can stand alone is the man who will never have to settle. Most men waste their energy chasing women. They think the more they pursue, the more they win. But in reality, the more they chase, the more they lose. Time, money, focus, all of it gets drained chasing someone who was never the goal in the first place. Look around. How many men do you see living paycheck to paycheck, not because they're broke, but because they spend every dime trying to impress someone? How many guys are exhausted, not from working on themselves, but from constantly texting, calling, and trying to keep up with a woman who barely even respects them? The problem isn't relationships, the problem is priorities. A man who hasn't built anything for himself has no business making a woman his priority. Yet that's exactly what most men do. They wake up every day thinking about how to get her attention instead of thinking about how to get better. They memorize her favorite color but haven't read a single book in years. They take her on expensive dates but won't invest a dime into improving their own lives. And then when the relationship falls apart, they're lost because they weren't building themselves. They were building their lives around someone else. A man's focus should be his mission first, his goals, his purpose, his personal growth. Everything else comes after that. When you spend your energy developing discipline, stacking skills, getting stronger, making more money, and becoming more valuable, you won't need to chase anyone, because the right people will come to you. Think about the most powerful, successful, respected men in history. They weren't out here begging for attention. They weren't rearranging their schedules to accommodate someone who didn't care about them. They were too busy becoming something great. And because of that, people, including women, naturally gravitated toward them. When a man has purpose, when he's obsessed with his mission, he doesn't have time to chase. And ironically, that's when he becomes most attractive. Because nothing is more powerful than a man who knows where he's going. But if you waste your energy chasing temporary distractions, you'll never have the strength to build something lasting. A man who spends his life chasing women will never have enough time to chase success. And the man who chases success He never has to chase anything else. Love should add to your life, not define it. A relationship is not supposed to be your entire world. It's supposed to complement the world you're already building. But too many men get it backwards. They think finding the right woman will magically fix their problems. They think once they have a girlfriend, life will suddenly make sense. But that's not how it works. If you're unhappy, a relationship won't make you happy. If you're broke, a relationship won't make you rich. If you have no direction, a relationship won't give you purpose. And yet, men keep looking for a girlfriend like she's the missing puzzle piece to their lives. Like love will somehow turn them into the man they were too lazy to become on their own. The truth is, no woman wants to be your purpose. No woman wants to feel like she's responsible for making you feel complete. A real woman wants to walk beside a man who already has direction, a man who already knows who he is. She doesn't want to build you, she wants to join you on the journey you're already creating. But if you make a relationship your entire identity, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because what happens when she leaves? What happens when she gets bored? What happens when life pulls you apart? If your entire sense of self was tied to that one person, you'll be completely lost. And that's why so many men break down after a breakup. They never had a solid foundation to begin with. A strong man builds his own world first. He develops his skills, his mindset, his finances, his discipline. He becomes a complete person on his own. And then when the right woman comes along, she adds to his life. She doesn't become his life. Because love should be a bonus, not a blueprint. It should be something that enhances what you've already built, not something you rely on just to feel whole. The man who understands this will never fear being alone, because he knows he's already enough. And ironically, that's exactly the kind of man who attracts the right kind of woman. The kind who wants to walk beside a king, not carry a man who refuses to build his own kingdom. The world pressures you to be in a relationship. From the moment you're old enough to understand romance, you're told that being single means something is wrong with you. Movies, music, social media, they all push the idea that happiness comes from finding the one. That if you don't have a girlfriend, you're incomplete. That if you're alone, you must be lonely. But let me ask you, who decided that? Who decided that a man's worth is tied to whether or not he has someone by his side? Because the truth is, most of this pressure doesn't come from within. It comes from outside noise. Family members asking when you're going to settle down. Friends clowning you for not being in a relationship. Society making it seem like every successful man has to have a woman next to him. And a lot of men fall for it. They rush into relationships, not because they truly want to, but because they feel like they have to. They think having a girlfriend will give them status, will make them look like they've got their life together. So they force it. They get into relationships that don't align with their goals, that distract them, that drain them, all because they don't want to be the guy who's still single. But here's what they don't tell you. Greatness is built in solitude. The strongest men in history weren't spending their time chasing relationships just to fit in. They were locked in, focused, grinding. They knew that before they could even think about sharing their life with someone else, they had to build something worth sharing. If you let the world dictate your timeline, you'll end up living a life that isn't even yours. You'll settle for the first person who comes along just to silence the pressure, instead of waiting for the right one when the time is right. And worse, you'll sacrifice your goals, your dreams, and your purpose just to meet some imaginary deadline society created for you. A real man doesn't let the world decide when he's ready. He doesn't let outside voices rush him into something that isn't aligned with his mission. He moves at his own pace, knowing that when he's built himself into the man he's meant to be, everything else, including the right relationship, will naturally fall into place. A strong man attracts, he does not chase. The moment you start chasing, you've already lost. Because chasing means you're operating from a place of lack, like you need something outside of yourself to feel complete. But a man who knows his value, he doesn't run after anyone. He becomes so focused on his own growth that people naturally gravitate toward him. Look at the men who constantly chase women. They're always texting first, always trying to prove themselves, always bending over backward just to get attention. And what happens? They get ignored, they get played, they get put in the friend zone. Not because they aren't good enough, but because they're acting like they aren't. A woman can sense when a man needs her attention, and nothing is less attractive than a man who's desperate for validation. But a man who is fully locked into his purpose, a man who is focused on his craft, his goals, his personal development, he doesn't have to chase, because people can feel his energy, they can see his confidence, and that makes him undeniable. Think about the most powerful men in any industry. Do you think they spend their time swiping through dating apps all day? No, they're too busy building. They're too busy mastering their skills, making moves, creating their legacy. And because of that, they don't have to chase anyone. Because people are drawn to strength, ambition, and self-assuredness. The mistake most men make is thinking they need to impress women to get them. But in reality, the most attractive thing a man can do is stop trying so hard. Stop seeking approval. Stop overthinking every interaction. Stop making someone else the center of your universe before you even built your own world. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you become more desirable. Because a man who doesn't need is far more powerful than a man who's always searching. He's in control. He's unshaken. And that energy commands respect, not just from women, but from the world. So don't waste your time running after people who aren't running toward you. Build yourself so well that you don't have to chase, because everything you deserve will naturally come your way. Your mission comes first. Before relationships, before distractions, before anything else, you need a purpose. Without it, you're just drifting. You wake up without direction, you move without intention, and you let life push you around instead of taking control. A man without a mission is like a ship without a rudder. He goes wherever the wind takes him, never realizing he was meant to steer his own course. Too many men get caught up in chasing relationships before they've even built themselves. They prioritize love over legacy, affection over ambition, and then when things fall apart, they're left with nothing. No foundation, no personal growth, no progress, because they built their entire identity around someone else instead of themselves. But a man who puts his mission first, he's different. He doesn't wake up wondering who's texting him. He wakes up focused on his goals. He's not out here begging for love. He's out here building something that will outlast him. His energy is directed at something bigger than himself, something that challenges him, something that forces him to grow. And because of that, he doesn't need anyone to complete him. When a man has purpose, he moves differently. He's not easily distracted. He doesn't waste time on meaningless drama or shallow relationships. He sees life as a battlefield, and every day is another opportunity to sharpen his skills, strengthen his mind, and push himself further. And ironically, this is exactly what makes him more attractive, more respected, more powerful, because people can see his fire. Women respect a man who knows where he's going. They don't want someone who makes them his entire world. They want a man who already has a world of his own. A man on a mission doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't settle. He moves with purpose and the right people follow. But if you don't put your mission first, life will put you last. You'll end up in relationships that pull you away from your goals, in situations that drain your energy, in cycles of mediocrity that keep you from your potential. The man who builds himself first is the man who never has to wonder if he's good enough, because he already knows he is. And when you operate at that level, success in every area, including relationships, becomes inevitable. So now the question is, what kind of man are you going to be? Are you going to be the guy who wastes his energy chasing